And there we had Loudest Whisper and Plastic Bags, which is very appropriate leading into my next piece, which is to talk about plastic pollution in our oceans and seas, which is a threat to all life, not just a problem for the fisheries sector. And to talk about that, I'm delighted to be joined on the line by the MEP for Ireland South and former President of Cumann Lucas Gael, Mr. Sean Kelly. Sean, good evening and welcome to Drive Time.
Dave, delighted to be with you all the way from Brussels. Thank you very much for having me on.
All the way from Brussels, and actually the first time that I encountered your good self was in 2009 when I had the honour of singing Around the Vein for the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin, and you passed in front of the reviewing stand as I was pucking it out.
And you did a great job.
You're very kind. But Sean, let's get down to it. A lot of people would have been watching Claire Byrne on RTE on Monday night, and there was a lot of footage, courtesy of National Geographic, about the damage that plastic waste is causing, you know, not just to fisheries, but right around the country and to everyday life. And I know there's been a debate taking place in the EU Parliament. What's the current state of play?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I think most of us, myself included, were taken by surprise when we saw the extent of the pollution, especially in our seas, from plastic over the years. And because of that, and with a desire to clean up the situation, the European Parliament are now going to propose measures to deal with it, and especially to make sure that plastic is either reusable or recyclable in as short a space of time as possible. And I've been appointed by the Fisheries Committee on behalf of our group to lead those negotiations. And I'm very pleased because I think most people would say, why would we allow plastic to be used in such a way, thrown all over the place and destroying our ecosystem, marine life, and as well as that, human life, because the fish get poisoned and people eat the fish and they in turn get poisoned. So it's a no-brainer from that point of view, but it's a terrible thing to think that such a situation has been allowed to exist for so long.
Yeah, and I know last weekend now a lot of stores got involved in providing bins inside in the shops for people to remove plastic from items such as fruit and vegetables, and people were really shocked to see the amount of plastic waste that they had accumulated just in one shopping trolley.
Yes, and in fairness, people are great. And some shops are fantastic because I saw different measures taken to eliminate plastic for a weekend or for a week or two to try and get the message across. And all this is actually wonderful because it's creating the awareness, number one. It's saying we want action, number two. And therefore, the producers of plastic are now going to be in a position where they either have to have it eco-friendly or else it won't be used at all. And that's going to be the target in the European Union. But of course, we aren't actually altogether without blame as well. A lot of the plastic that finishes up in the oceans in Asia are actually exported by the European Union itself. So that's something that we are going to have to stop as well.
Yeah, I know that there are ships coming into Cork almost on a weekly basis now to remove the recyclable waste, and we can see it on the quays being transported in. So we're actually shipping out our mess to somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's terrible. And I'm glad actually because this week I was told in the European Parliament here, who were discussing it, that Chinese are now going to refuse to take it, and that's the right thing to do. Why should we be taking rubbish basically from another country and they're paying you to dispose of it in a most unfriendly way? So with the COP21, the Paris Agreement, there's a growing desire now worldwide to ensure that we preserve our climate for future generations. And everything that can contribute to that, we must uphold and embrace. And everything that doesn't, including polluting our seas, we have to reject and stop.
You know, Sean, when I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking back, and you and I would be of an age when we remembered the milkman coming around every morning with the milk in a bottle. And we had a local corner store that if you wanted to buy, you know, soft drink, you bought it in a bottle, and then you were actually given 10p back if you brought back the glass bottle. I'm wondering, should we go back to the days of glass, as opposed to plastic?
It's certainly something that should be considered, because I have attended a few hearings here in the European Parliament, and glass is part of what they call the circular economy. Most of it can be recycled and is recycled. And if that's the situation, then there is no waste actually from it. The waste becomes a resource to be used again and again. And unless plastic can do that, which I'm quite sure a lot of it can, then obviously there is no place for it into the future. So they are very important points to be considered. And also, of course, I think which should be introduced as well, even as an interim measure. A lot of people buy plastic, maybe fertilizer in bags, coal in bags of plastic. So many things are in plastic, but actually there is no way of returning it. Whereas, for instance, if you bought something in a pallet, you can return the pallet often. So I think that's something that should be looked at very quickly, and I'll be talking to my colleagues here in the European Parliament about that as a measure until we get everything sorted.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I've even seen it if you were buying, we say, fuel on bulk, like bags of coal or bags of slack. The bags are delivered, but there's no way of returning these bags, which are made of plastic or some sort of plastic mesh. Where do people put them? There's no way of returning them.
Absolutely, and if there was a way of doing it, sending it back to the producers, then things wouldn't be half as bad. So that's definitely something to be looked at. Another thing that has to be looked at, which we aren't conscious of often, is that a lot of the plastics and the litter at sea is generated by boats and ships themselves dumping things at sea. So what we'll be proposing there is that would be prohibited, and there would be facilities provided in ports to take all this rubbish. They'd have to declare what they have, and then to be recycled or reused again in some other way or disposed of properly.
Well, I'm a great believer, Sean, in re-educating people and offering them incentives to do the right thing. And I know people will be worried. We brought in the tax on plastic bags. There was a bit of a hoo-ha about it for a week or two, and it died down. We're encouraged to, recycle our waste into our recycling waste bins. But I suppose the worry will be that whatever is done, it's going to come back to the consumer again to have to foot the bill.
Yeah, that's obviously a concern, but that shouldn't necessarily be the case, especially if there's an option to return it, as you said, like the bottle, and get something in return financially for it. Or number two, if it's reusable and recyclable, that the companies who produce it will actually be looking for it, because there's actually a resource rather than a waste. So therefore, the consumer shouldn't be, again, as you said, at the disadvantage of having to pay for the clean-up, as you say, as a result of this. So I think that's something we have to look at as well and watch very carefully.
And of course, one of the biggest culprits, I suppose, in everyday life that causes some of the worst waste that we see is from coffee cups, because coffee cups cannot be recycled. And I'm delighted to see a lot of the coffee houses now are offering incentives to people that if you buy a reusable cup, you'll get 10 or 15% off your cup of coffee, and it's actually working.
And again, it just shows you how good and genuine the vast majority of people are. I didn't know actually until, I have to admit, until about a year ago, when I hosted a group of students actually from Cork, Charleville and Cork, who came out and they had a program called Ditch Your Plastic Cup. And they made a presentation to me and showed me that the cups, which and I suppose many more people thought were recyclable, weren't actually recyclable at all. And of course, when you become aware of that, then you're inclined to think twice of how you can actually do without this. And of course, as you said, being able to use your own cup and get something in return for it, again, it will actually be beneficial to the consumer. And that again is another measure that we have to take, because I know myself, my wife tells me now I'm nearly an addict. At any place I go, the first thing I do is stop in a deli to get a cup of coffee. But when you're coming home late at night, it's a big help to keep you awake. But to be nice to know that the cup itself was either recyclable or that you'd use your own, which you could keep for as long as you wanted.
So, look, at the end of the day, it's all about awareness, making people aware, and maybe the best places to do this is in schools as well, to encourage our young people to teach us, the adults, what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do.
And the kids are the best to do that. And in fairness, I've seen it over the years, the work that goes on in so many of our schools, especially, for instance, in relation to the green flag, where they're taught about recycling and water quality and everything else, is fantastic. And as you said, they bring the message home to the parents. And through, I think, the green flag in particular, an awful lot of recycling is taking place that people wouldn't be doing otherwise because they may not be aware of it. But once the kids come home and say, Mom or Dad, this is not good, we're destroying the environment, we must recycle, then the parents will obviously do it, and society has benefited enormously. So the same can apply, as you said, to this. Create the awareness in the school kids, and they'll teach us what to do and how to do it without fuss.
And sadly, the reality is that only 9% of plastic produced since 1950 has been recycled. But Sean, I'm going to digress ever so slightly. The GA, we've enjoyed a fantastic league campaign in both hurling and football. Are you looking forward to the championship?
I am indeed, and a lot of people are sceptical about the new arrangement, but at least it's worth looking at. And then if it doesn't work out, you can change it. But there are a lot of things that need to be fixed. But at the same time, I think when it comes to it, our passions will be high. We'll be supporting our own teams, winning them on. There'll be great entertainment. There'll be some great scores, great skills, and of course, all done by people, especially the players, who are doing so on a voluntary basis, amateur status, and doing it for the love of the jersey. And my God, when you see the situation in many other countries, we have so much to be proud of, especially in relation to our own native games.
And that's so very, very true. And, we can be our own greatest critics, but we should take, cognizant of the fact that, we have great sports, we have great culture, we have great tradition in this country, and there's a lot more to be proud of than, to be negative about.
Yeah, and it's only when you go abroad and look at other countries, you realise the really outstanding cultural heritage we have in terms of music, dance, language, and especially, I suppose, the most visible of them all, Gaelic games, and the way they are supported by so many people throughout the country and in every community, and doing such great work as well. Not just playing the games and keeping the culture alive, but doing fantastic work at community level. You'll almost find every funeral you go to, you'll see voluntary stewards there from the GA often. You'll see charity events manned by GA people. Do you know that wonderful spirit? You can buy it, and it isn't in many places, and we really should value it.
Indeed. Well, Sean, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I know you're busy over there in Brussels, flying the flag for Ireland, for the South, for Munster, and for your own native land. Listen, thanks for talking to us on CRY, and continued success in all that you do.
And thanks so much for the interest you're showing in events like that, because local radios have a huge influence that reflect the issues that people are concerned about. And it's great that we can all work together to try and improve society for everybody's benefit. They're
the voice of the real community of the man and woman on the ground.
Exactly.
Sean, thanks so much, and safe home from Brussels.
Thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated.
Take care. Slán go fóill. And there we had Sean Kelly, the Irish MEP for Ireland South, talking to us about the plastic pollution. And it is, folks, it is a serious, serious issue. And maybe through education, in our schools, getting our young people, teaching us. Sometimes we have to be taught what the right thing to do is.